I hope you're well. I hope you had a good holiday season, and I hope you're feeling good going into this new year. If you're not, that's fine. The new year is a lie. It is a lie we all tell ourselves. And one of the things that I've really been thinking about lately is that January isn't some kind of like magic reset button for energy. If you celebrate this holiday season, you have probably spent the last few weeks relaxing, eating, enjoying company, friends and family, and just on a completely different level than likely what you are the rest of the year in terms of your energy and productivity. At least I know I have. And so going back full force into January is really, really difficult. I keep telling people that it's kind of like being inside for a really long time and then going out in the freezing cold. You don't get mad at your body for feeling cold. You've just been resting for a really long time. Jumping back into work or real life is a lot like stepping out into the cold after being really warm. So we're not going to be mad at ourselves for being tired these next couple of weeks because it is very jarring to suddenly have to shift your energy. I am speaking from a place of immense privilege because I am still on my break from school. I don't go back to school until January 8th. Unlike a lot of people that I know that I love who are back at work this week, I am still technically on vacation. So I am treating this week as kind of a soft launch. I'm really, really grateful because it means that I can just kind of jump into this new year with a lot of ease and patience with myself. Another part of easing into this new year for me is the reminder that this is probably the last time in a really long time I'm gonna have any time off. That's a lot of time in a row. But basically what I'm trying to say is when I go back to school next week, pretty much until April or May, I will not have any time off. I will be in school or I will be in placements. And then after that, I'll be looking for a job. So this is really the last stretch of freedom I feel like I have. And I'm going to write my first words of 2024, and you're gonna join me, and it's gonna be super exciting. I was talking in my last vlog a little bit about the projects that I'm working on, so let's talk about them very briefly. Number one is a adult horror story, a psychological thriller that I just finished what I'm calling my zero draft of, which is basically 36,000 words of just pure plot. A mess of a plot. It falls apart at the end. There are bullet points. There are jabs at myself in brackets saying, what are you doing with your life? Why are you trying to write this story? But it is done. The plot is complete for the most part. I mean, it's probably going to change a lot. I've had my readers read that over the break. I've gotten some feedback, which I think is really, really, really going to be super helpful. I'm so excited for the feedback that I got because it confirmed pretty much everything that I wanted to do, but I was fighting myself. That's going to be my main priority this year, is focusing on that project and trying to get a draft of that done. However, it is a very hard story to write, and I've really struggled with it. And the entire time I was writing it, I was dreaming of other projects. I wanted to write something else so badly, but I wouldn't let myself write a single thing in another project until I finished this zero draft. And I did, and now I get to do just that. So the second thing that I'm working on, my other project that I really want to focus on this year, is book 2 in an adult fantasy story that I'm writing that is kind of a World War I retelling of both the legend of Anastasia as well as the Eastern Front. It's an epic romance fantasy. I love this new genre, romantasy. That is exactly what this book is. It's heavy on the politics, it's heavy on the war, but it's also very heavy on the romance. And I love it so much. It is my heart on paper. So I'm gonna do just that. I'm gonna keep working on it. I'm going to write book 2 in that series. In my mind right now, it's a 3-book series, but I have no idea. I don't know. We shall see. I know I definitely want more of the story written before I even dream of publishing it, because I just want to have the ending in mind before I put the first book out there and start the story. So I'm going to use that as a little sprinkle of a treat each week. I've kind of done my scheduling for the year, and I've thought about how, at least for the first part of the year, because I have no idea what the next part of the year is going to look like. First quarter of the year, I am going to basically work on my main horror story all throughout the week, and then on the weekends, I will allow myself to work on the Folk 2 is what I'm calling it. Project that is the epic fantasy is called The Folk. this is the second book in the series. However, today is just a single day in my life because it is a Thursday. So basically, what I've decided I'm gonna do is I'm gonna start with a blank page on this draft. I work in Scrivener. I really like Scrivener because you don't need the internet to use it. It's really easy to organize my thoughts and whatnot, but I have used other programs that I really like. Downloaded my original zero draft manuscript from Scrivener into a Word doc, and I am basically just going to transfer over the parts that I like as I get to them. So basically, to avoid rambling any further, I am just going to start with a blank page, a blank Scrivener document. I will fill in some pictures that inspire me for this story. I will just transfer over from the Word doc as I get to the certain parts that I like, because there are some parts that are definitely gonna stay, but blank page it is. That's what I'm doing. We're starting with a completely new project, and it's gonna be really exciting. I just wrote 2,100 words of the first scene. I changed up the scene a little bit. I'm not really sure how much of that was like active writing and how much of it was editing. I feel like it was about 50-50, but it doesn't matter because the first words of 2024 are in the document, and I'm gonna celebrate by making a playlist for my book. And I have a couple songs in my head that I feel like are just perfect for this. So I'm gonna make a little playlist as a treat, but first I'm just gonna go through the scene and edit it just to make sure that it's kind of as clean as possible. And then I'm also going to set a target, a goal for each day of how many words that I want to write / get through in order to reach my manuscript goal. So I've set a deadline for Halloween of this year, and I set my target for this manuscript's word count to be around 80K, and it automatically calculated that I would need to write 266 words a day, which I think is possible. I think I can do that. So deadline has been set. Now it's time for the fun stuff. I'm gonna make a playlist, and I'm gonna play around with my Pinterest mood board a little bit.
Shores of blue fine, joining forces with the wind. Two can find the paths of line between the moon and seesaw end, rising to the cliff's delight, greeted by the grass of green.
Oh, hey, hi. We're sitting in my reading chair because we're going to talk about books really quickly. I'm just going to move you closer. I just finished reading my book, this massive, chunky boy, and I wanted to talk about the series really quickly and also pick out another book and take you through my January TBR a little bit. I've been reading this series for the past few weeks now. I got this book from Tom as a surprise while I was still in school because I was having a really tough week. And so he surprised me with a bunch of romance fantasy books, and this was one of them, and I'm so glad he did. This is a self-published book by Penn Cole. It's The Kindred's Curse Saga is the name of it, and the first book is called Spark of the Everflame, and it's really good. It's really fun, and obviously I really enjoyed it because I've been reading through the series. Really quickly, I will try to explain the plot, but it is quite complicated, and there's just a lot going on, and frankly, all of the books have kind of meshed together in my mind. This is a slow burn romantasy. It's a mortal world that is colonized by gods, essentially, and magic folk by the name of the Descended. And there are, I believe, 9 realms that all have different elements to their magic, different features to their magic, and they are all ruled by a very specific god. In the first book, we follow a young woman named DM Bellatar, whose mother disappears, and she's kind of thrown into the world of the magic folk. And oh my goodness, does it just grow from there and just get all the more interesting. There's a lot of things about these books that I really enjoy. I think that the world is really neat, and I'm really enjoying learning more about this world. And honestly, it just gets better and better. I really enjoyed the last book, and I can't believe that I have to wait for the 4th book to come out. The 4th book is not yet published. It's coming out in March, and I honestly can't wait because it ends on a cliffhanger. Every single book in this series ends on a cliffhanger, and I just gobbled it up happily. It's certainly not a perfect series by any stretch, but if you are a romance fantasy reader, definitely check it out because it just balances the romance and the fantasy in a way that I love. There's so much more plot than just the romance, and the romance is super sweet and really, really fun. That's what I just finished, and I'm so happy to have read it. I really, really love self-published fantasy, and honestly, this is really inspiring to me. It's really inspiring when I think about self-publishing my own romance fantasy. Big fan, highly recommend. It is called The Kindred's Curse Saga, and the first book is Spark of the Everflame. Let me just grab you. Okay, so this is my TBR shelf here. I have my new tarot card deck that I actually bought for a friend for her birthday, but then I got her something even better, so I decided to keep this. It's really fun. I'm really enjoying it. There's women from various mythologies, from various cultures, and I feel like I'm learning a lot, and it's really inspiring to want to research more whenever I pull a card. These are the books that I have to read this month, or that I want to read this month. The number one book that I really want to read, but I'm waiting for my best friend to get her copy, is Les Miserables by Victor Hugo. I cannot wait to start this book. I'm so excited. We are going to read it War and Peace style. I've never read this book. I'm obsessed with the musical. I've never read the book, and I'm really looking forward to it. Actually, the better gift that I got my friend that led me to keep these is tickets to Les Miserables here in Toronto, the musical. I'm really excited for it. So I'm basically just waiting to start that one. As soon as she gets her copy, she's going to text me. It's going to be like mid-January, and we'll pick it up. And there's absolutely no way I'm going to finish it in January, but I want to start it. I also have some fantasy. I got all of the Poppy War trilogy for Christmas. It's really the only thing I wanted for Christmas, and I am so excited to read it. You know my love of R.F. Kuang if you've watched a video before. If not, I love her. I love her writing. I love her storytelling, and I'm really excited to dive into this one. I was waiting to get the trilogy as a complete set. I know I'm gonna read every single one of these. These are just random books that friends from school actually gave me. 2 are self-published books by a classmate of mine, and I really want to read them before I go back to school so I can send him my thoughts. So I'm really excited for that. And then the other one is just a random romantic fantasy book that a friend lent me because she knows how much I love it and we bond over it. So I don't think I'm going to pick up any of these just yet because I'm not into the fantasy. Same with the Scythe book. I don't think I want to dive into another fantasy right now, but I definitely want to keep it in mind. But I really want to read this ASAP because I just have a feeling I'm going to really enjoy it. I have Legends and Lattes, also a fantasy, but a cozy fantasy, not quite epic. So I don't know. I don't think I'm going to do this one just yet, but I might do it after my next read because I already have my next read in mind. I'm just going through these one by one. Down here, I have a nonfiction that I'd like to start in January called Natasha's Dance, The Cultural History of Russia. I'm going through this Green Witch book quite slowly. I'm just going like chapter by chapter every once in a while, but I'm really enjoying it. It's really empowering to me. The book that I plan to read next, as you can imagine, because I've gone through all of these and haven't talked about it, is Notes on an Execution. I think this is the one I'm gonna read next. Okay, I put you back on here because let's talk about it. I'm gonna actually grab it. I think I'm gonna read this one next because obviously this is not fantasy, it's literary, and I've heard really good things about it, and it's a completely different vibe than the book I just read. And I've heard wonderful, wonderful things about this story, so I'm really excited. This is essentially a literary exploration on violence against women. It is told from the point of view of a serial killer who was on death row, and I've heard that it just has a lot of like thought-provoking elements and themes to it, so I'm very excited to pick this up. It will just be the perfect break from fantasy before I dive back in, because truthfully I am really feeling like reading a lot of fantasy, but I do think that I can get a little burnt out on fantasy, especially romantic fantasy, because there's very similar elements of like tropes and like characters do things that like you're like, oh, this is so annoying, but like it happens all the time. So I could need a little break, and I'm gonna dive back into fantasy pretty much as soon as I'm done this. Oh, another book that I'm actually gonna read that is part of my writing that I talked about a little bit earlier today, and that is the book that I wrote previously. I'm calling it The Folk, and it is an epic fantasy, as I said, and I have that on my Kobo. So that's a book that I'm gonna pick up on the weekends or whenever I'm doing my writing for the second book. But before I even think about writing the second book, I have to reread the first book because it's been a long time now. It's been years, which is crazy to me, but yeah, it's been like almost 2 years. So I gotta reread it to jog my memory a little bit. Now I'm just procrastinating because I have to vacuum now. So that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna vacuum. I'm gonna make some delicious dinner. I don't think I'm gonna go to the gym because I'm still super sore from my last gym session, and I just don't think it's a good idea to go when I'm still super sore. So I'm probably gonna end up going tomorrow. But now it's time to vacuum. I just spontaneously deep cleaned my entire apartment, and I'm pretty tired now. I decided to do all of the chores that we normally do. Normally we split up our chores and Tom does all the vacuuming and I do the laundry, but this week I'm off and he's working, and not only is he working, it's like the first week back, so I told him that I'm happy to take on the load of doing all of the work. And so I decided to just do it all at once. Normally I would split it up and I wouldn't do it all in one day. So I have a super clean apartment right now, but now I'm very tired. But I wanted to show you my journal because one of my goals this year is to get back into journaling. I don't want to say get back into journaling because I do journal. It's just not as regular as I would like to, and towards the end of last year it really wasn't as regular as I wanted it to be. My cat's bringing me a toy right now. Look at how proud you are. Oh wow. It's the best game ever. She doesn't want you to play, she just wants to bring you toys. Sometimes she fetches. Back to journaling. I fell out of journaling a little bit towards the end of last year because life got busy. To be honest, 2 things prevent me from journaling. Number 1, my inability to handwrite anymore at the level that I can type. Really struggle with handwriting now because of my elbows and neck and shoulders, all of the pain that happens. It's really hard to be hunched over for a long period of time and physically write. And I also find it really difficult to keep up with the thoughts in my head because I can't write as quick, obviously, as I can type. So I did consider potentially switching my journaling to a computer, but for some reason that just really makes me nervous. I don't know why. Do any of you journal on your computer? If so, how does it go for you? Maybe I'm just being a silly little purist and I'm just holding myself back. I know a lot of famous journalers and diarists now write on their computer. Like I know David Sedaris uses his computer to journal, I'm pretty sure. So anywho, I don't know. So anyway, that was a long-winded way of saying
Writing is hard. Like physically writing on a piece of paper is difficult for me for a number of reasons. The second reason that I kind of fell out of journaling is because I used to journal first thing in the morning, and I find, and I was just talking about this with my best friend, and she found a very similar thing to be true. I find that I just would constantly write like pep talks about the day ahead, and it just was kind of boring. Like it just was the same journal entry kind of over and over again, the same energy, because at the start of the day, in the very early morning, I find I don't have a lot of complex feelings. I find my feeling is just ready to start the day, happy for life, all that jazz. It just got really repetitive, and I found it not to be super helpful. I'm thinking that number one, I'm gonna keep writing in a journal for as long as I possibly can, because I just like the idea of unplugging. However, if any of you encourage me to switch over to journaling on my computer, I might consider it. But to solve issue number two, I'm gonna try to write at the end of the day. I just feel like that might give me a better chance of having more creative things to do in my journal as opposed to just a pep talk for the day ahead. I think I've shown you my bullet journal in my previous video, but I just wanted to show you it again in case I missed showing it to you. It is mushrooms, and it's a really, really cute color. A lot of this is filled with like to-do lists, my calendars, important dates, routine stuff, all that jazz. I'll write like a little debrief at the end of every day of like how the day went. It'll be like 1 or 2 sentences, and it's more just like a record of my life. Whereas I've switched over to this book for my regular diary. It is a massive book, so I'm only really gonna probably write 1 page at a time, but it has this really pretty picture of a tree, and I actually bought this to encourage me to write this fantasy that I just have in my head that I want to write so badly. I've written the prologue for it, and it's such a good prologue, and I'm like, man, this would be such a good story, but time is not my friend right now. I think I am going to sit down for the next like 30 or so minutes, and I'm just gonna journal out my feelings. I'm gonna wait for my laundry to be done, and then I'm gonna stretch a little bit, and then I'm probably gonna get started on dinner. We are having a spicy tofu dinner with some sauteed green beans and sauteed kale.